Hello, welcome to Sound Sagas. On today's episode, we are talking formats, all things formats, everything from Sony Walkman, Apple iPod. I mean, right here I'm holding like maybe the two things that
decades
changed.
of game changers
Yeah.
in their decade.
And this is not an OG Walkman, right? No.
It is.
This is the original.
That one's from that one's from the 80s.
Yeah, but it's not the...
That's like a sports version.
Yeah.
There was the original Walkman as seen in Guardians of the Galaxy is the blue stainless steel one with the orange button. Yeah. Came with a leather case too. A premium product.
Yeah.
Wish I could have snagged it before the movie blew up. But thanks, James Gunn.
And then the iPod, not OG either, actually pretty, I don't know, not super late into when they were making these things, but not far from the OG.
What year was that one? Do you remember?
Oof. Maybe I can see a copyright on here. 2007, it says copyright.
2007,
yeah. I remember the original iPods had the separate 4 buttons and then the scroll wheel, and then they were the brilliant Apple
click
idea.
Buttons, no scroll.
Put the buttons on the wheel. Yeah. Exactly. The capacitive buttons.
Right.
I remember my friend had one in high school. I remember that day, actually. Because he was the first one to get an iPod.
Same. My friend had one, too.
And the moment I saw it is the moment I started saving for it. I was like, that's a game changer.
I was like, I got to have one of those.
Yeah, and there's things in life that you might want. This is neat. As someone into music, to have it all in high-quality format.
Well, and you remember, too, it was like a black and white menu you were scrolling through. But even that was like...
That was amazing.
Years beyond what we were doing.
And the simplicity of it, because all it did... Well, I guess later, there's like silly games and stuff, but no.
Videos later,
and you could watch... This never caught on, watching videos on these things, but...
I mean, phones, but...
Yeah, phones basically...
Phones do all that
This
now.
without a control and like much more software. But basically the idea, a computer with a hard drive and a simple interface, and it plays music.
Yeah, and it's always on there.
Yeah. And the battery's good. It fits in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck it in the car. I think much of the same concepts that made this thing immensely popular is just the ease of use.
Well, and to your point, like, still use that. Still use my iPod Nano.
Mm-hmm.
Smaller scale, but, you know, if you're in an airport with no Wi-Fi, what are you going to do, you know?
Precisely. Also, there's a look and aesthetic to one of these that harkens back and puts you in the mindset to really enjoy something that was meant.
And if you slap it on your belt, you look really cool.
That is true. Yeah, this thing, maybe you could like magnet to right here. I don't know. No.
Yeah, little chess piece.
But it's a good point. I mean, all these topics, because formats, like the idea with format in music is that it eases the consumption or the experience of listening, right?
Yeah, it makes it better.
It's supposed to enhance and provide all you need to enjoy the art form without getting in the way. But the problem with anything physical that you can hold in your hand, there's always an element of it being in the way, right? You have to learn control interfaces. As simple and as brilliant, actually, as someone who doesn't like Apple products that much, this thing was amazing. This thing was like...
it was an innovation.
I remember handing this to my mother, and I said, you just do this and press these buttons. And she can't figure out a damn thing. She figured this thing out in 2 seconds. I'm like, how did you mass market a music consumption device that...
So simple and also so easy to use.
Yeah, amazing. Big thing with these things with me is I never understood how they got there's a spinning disk hard drive in these. It's not flash. And how they got that. You could
hear it.
Yeah, you could, and you could feel it. Actually, the spinning motion will, like a top that you spin and it resists tipping.
Yeah.
If this thing's at full bore, you will feel it kind of resist your tipping.
Right.
If you hold it flat. Yeah. How did they get that hard drive to last? Like people tossing these in their pockets. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a small, very complex mechanical drive with tiny little parts, and people toss these things. I remember I had a case on this, but for the purposes of the demonstration, getting it out of the case and naked, little 2007 scape here. So like formats, they obviously change a lot with how we interact with music.
Well, and they define how music is listened to.
Exactly.
You can't get something that's recorded in the studio to sound exactly like it's going to sound in there everywhere.
Right.
It's just impossible. So, I mean, all these mixing and mastering and like all this stuff that everyone talks about doing to tracks and albums, it's like an effort to either make it better or make it sound like it sounded in that person's head. So
right.
These formats are important because that's the delivery mechanism for everything.
It's also the delivery mechanism for the additional art that goes beyond just the music.
Yeah, the visual. It's how it's consumed at all. You know,
it's part of the experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think showcasing all these different types, and we'll have a few more examples for you here in a second, like showcasing all this variations among formats and between formats it's enlightening to see like how that mixes with the consumption of its time, right? Or how people get music. Like in a prior episode, we talked about, I think, shopping at Best Buy or buying CDs at the store or going record shopping. Like these things there might be a resurgence now, but like online is the new king. And
digital downloads.
Digital being the format of the future.
Right.
And you mentioned like realism, like the idea of like music being delivered to you as precisely to the artist's intent as possible. Digital obviously offers that, but what digital doesn't have is like a sound quality it's very neutral, right? It can be whatever you want.
Flat, neutral.
Yeah.
I mean, you can describe it a lot of ways, but yeah, getting the artist intent in there is important. And format has a lot of play in that.
Vinyl being a go-to format for people like really, really into like some extra element to the music, right?
You hear the words warm and analog tossed around a lot.
Yeah, headroom maybe.
Headroom. Yeah. Spacious, roomy.
Yeah. As meaningless as those words could or may be, like it is different listening to something on album than digital. Just
totally.
is, yeah.
And it describes feelings.
Yeah.
You know, you can feel a certain way about something listening on record, on tape, on digital.
Absolutely.
It's equally important, even if it's not factually represented.
Right.
You know, how you feel about something.
I find the science and engineering of all these formats interesting, but they bear no weight you're perfectly right. Like it's all about, there's more than just like the sound going in your ears. It's about the experience. Like for instance, with an album, like a setup we have here, it's more common to like put on an album than maybe sit and listen to it. Than like click a button on your computer and then not do anything else, right? The computer does other things, but the record player does one thing.
Right. It's intentional.
Exactly. It's very intentional. So that has nothing to do with the sound of the music, but it's part of the experience. And like we mentioned with the Walkman and the iPod, like the experience of engaging with those products and using them can change everything.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, on that note too, we can kind of dig in to what we've got.
Yeah.
I mean, formats have been something people have fought over, argued for, argued against for a long time. I mean, currently in the digital age, we can kind of go over a few things that we think about and that are very prevalent, like, you know, is it better to have MP3s or have a lossless format or, you know, record digital to analog or analog to digital? I mean, I know myself, like, shopping on Bandcamp a lot, you can get FLACs.
Get those FLACs, get those waves.
And MP3s.
Yep.
So kind of best of both worlds there. But, you know, why does that matter? Or, like, how would that have an impact on how you're listening to it?
I think the truth with digital is that the differences and the variations matter less than it did with other formats. Like, that might sound weird at first because you're thinking like, oh, like 256 kilobit MP3s, like not the greatest, or 128.
I mean, I think especially now that's true.
Less true now because we're not streaming 128 kilobit MP3s anymore, right?
Right.
They're, you know, we're at a point where the sound quality is good enough with most things that most people don't care.
Yeah. So you're not going to miss out, you know, getting an MP3 versus a FLAC now.
Yeah, but here's the thing, like.
But when we grew up with it, you were.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you collect, that's where the difference becomes, because the part of the matter of collection is ensuring that your collection has the best
longevity.
Exactly, and So, like, for instance, a lossless file, like a WAV file you can download from Bandcamp instead of an MP3, you can crunch that into any MP3 you want. It's lossless because it is the most they can give you. It's also the largest file size, where FLAC comes in as it's half the size, same lossless, right?
Yeah.
Just better encoding. But yeah, these things, like, I think they enhance the music once you start getting into collecting, and like growing like a personal kind of library.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, there is this concept in physical media pretty prevalently, like archival.
Yeah.
Like what makes paper archival, what makes, certain media archival. Mm-hmm. Just having a lossless collection, or quote unquote lossless, makes it easier down the road, no matter what.
Yep.
And there's not really a downside to it at all.
No, except storage space, but tape is so cheap these days, storage-wise.
And it keeps getting cheaper.
Yeah. Like one cheap hard drive will hold all the music you would ever need. WAV, yeah.
Totally.
They're not enormous, like video files maybe, so. You have some cool pieces of format here. I mean, music, but like...
Yeah, so...
Tell me some stories. What do you got?
So,
pick one.
We were just listening to a record, Boy Genius.
You guys know what a record is, obviously. I'm just kidding.
The record.
Yep.
And 12-inch vinyl, pretty normal. But as formats go, this is kind of what people buy lately, it seems like.
Vinyl resurgence, you may have heard or talked about with other people or read online. That's definitely a thing.
Best-selling year last year, I think.
You mentioned
since
that,
the 70s. So people are definitely buying vinyl still. So like something like this, you have too much content for a 7-inch record, so you need to put it on a 10-inch. You don't quite want to produce or pay for a 12-inch release. That's kind of where these come in. They were more popular in the. I think there was a resurgence in the 90s a little bit, and then 70s.
Quite rare though, right?
Not a popular format,
right.
I'd say.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people won't choose to do this because it's more expensive than doing a CD or something like that. It's a little less kind of bang for buck than a 12-inch or a 7-inch. Some people re-release things on 10 inches because they think the quality is better. Radiohead has done this. Like the Kid A record came out on 10 inches with a higher speed. So like these are at 33 and 1/3. But what people will do is release at higher speed, 45, which is what 7-inch records typically run on. And then say like, well, if the needle's moving faster, the fidelity's better.
Yeah.
Which like...
You could get into it.
Yeah, just Google that. But
yeah, Google that. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
But people get in habits of releasing 10-inch records, like a couple 10 inches for a 12-inch because they're run at 45 speed.
Yeah.
Whether that's better or not, jury's out.
Yeah.
But
I do like...
They exist.
I like the size. I think 7's too small. Is holding it. You don't get a bigger piece of artwork with like visually. 10 feels like almost the right size.
It's a substantial
it's a little
piece of media.
Yeah. Whereas an album, you got to box them. You're sort of really lugging them around. But I like the 10.
They sell boxes because of that.
At record stores, you don't often see bins of 10 inches, do you?
No.
You get your 7 bin and then you got your regulars, but like. Yeah, it's cool. That's I like that album. That's really neat that you have that. And then they get smaller, as we all know, right?
Yeah.
You get to the 7.
And they kind of got a batch of 7 inches here because, much more releasable.
You end up with a stack of these eventually at some point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you are playing singles or DJing, this is kind of the go-to method for playing tracks and then switching quickly. People release these. It's usually side A, side B, 2 tracks, sometimes more than that. Pretty quick and simple way to release something.
Here's my favorite.
There was a fad to do flexis, which are plastic that has been engraved with the music. So you can, put this down on a record player, play it with a weight. sounds not the best.
Yeah.
But it gets the point across.
Is it worse than cassettes?
I think it's worse than cassettes.
Yeah, it looks like not a lot of great sounds coming out of that thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a losing race to begin with.
Flexi's popular with some magazines too because they're so easy to slap in a magazine.
Great promo piece in the 90s.
Exactly.
Yeah, when you couldn't put something digital out.
Yeah.
A Flexi
Decibel
was the
still does
answer.
Flexis. If anyone is in a heavy metal space and isn't aware, you can get your Flexi discs with Decibel Mag.
Very collectible.
They should still be doing it. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's cool that they do that.
Yeah, they're collector's items. I think for the most part.
Well, that looks very collector's right there.
Yeah. So again, 7-inch space. You have a lot more room, a lot more headway to like do some more interesting things. So we have cool die cut on this Brokeback one. Translucent vinyl before that was super popular. Just a cool kind of collector's piece. You can get a lot of 7-inch stuff like that. Test pressings. So what a lot of people do before a record comes out, you have a select amount of test pressings that come from the plant, and they're sent to label heads, artists, people who are invested in the album. A lot of times these come back as just blank discs. There's some engraving here that shows you what side A and side B, where your songs are. And this was one I did where you can kind of see, I don't know if the light will show that. Yeah, it's getting a little bit.
Yeah.
But one side's thicker than the other as far as like data. And that's because we did this one at 30 speed and 45 speed. So you can do different speeds on the same record. The reason for that was we just wanted the songs to kind of fill the space equally on the press itself, and then also just try to see like what it sounded like having a 45 speed versus a 33. Right. So kind of a cool.
Basically, the proof of if we make a bunch of these, they won't be messed up. We're testing out the waters. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and to have these are not sold. I mean, they're traded on the used market, but the purpose of that was not to sell. It's basically a stopgap between two steps in the process.
Yeah. And I mean, we did end up pressing it that way. So the released ones do have a 33 side and a 45 side, which we didn't tell people because we thought it'd be funny if people kind of flipped it over and got a sped up or slowed down
cool
version.
To have little tricks like that.
Yeah, of their song.
Yeah.
And kind of just touching on the record community a little bit more. Little Rose Eleanor Dougal record I bought, and the person included a note that said like, "Hey, I ran out of like new sleeves, so you put a used one on here."
She wrote on a post-it or a little note. Hey, sorry,
not a problem.
But now it's part of the album's history.
Love getting little artifacts like that.
It's a good. I like stuff like that, collecting wise, format wise, having physical media. One thing you miss with digital is like a paper trail almost of like that piece's history. Not things that change the value of the thing or impact the quality or the preservation of it, but that are like little bonus add-ons. Yeah, I have thank you notes from gifted CDs, for instance.
It's all ephemeral. Mm-hmm. So like having those artifacts of other people touching it or having experienced it is always kind of a cool thing.
It rounds out the whole story of the piece, right?
And you totally miss that in digital. I'm a proponent of digital.
Me too. I have a big library digitally. Yeah. But I cherish my library, but I cherish individual albums, like the actual physical representation of them, because they come with a lot of them might have been gifts. They come with a note or something. Sometimes in my past journalism career, I've done interviews and get gifted CDs and albums with a handwritten note to save all that stuff.
And it just makes it a better experience. And, every time I listen to that, I see that. So it's something you can kind of hold on to.
Vinyl makes it easy. You just drop the little note right in the sleeve. It's there forever.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you put that in a CD, that'll pop out or get lost that's good. Yeah.
Totally. And kind of a last one here, just a kind of well-produced indie 7-inch from Holy Motors. It's got the sleeve. Commonly, you'll do a sleeve like that where it's digitally printed, both sides, and then just a regular 7-inch with the label there. So kind of a good example of how to do it right too if you're just looking to make a 7-inch.
A lot of this might seem like rudimentary as far as people our age, but like you got to realize the farther we get away from these, and even considering the vinyl resurgence, a lot of genres of music are not vinyl heavy. A lot of people don't have interest or want to go through the preparations and necessities for playing vinyl, and that's like totally cool and fair. Like it's not like a requirement to get the best of anything. But
and it's an expense, producing a 7-inch or a 10-inch, or
it can be an investment if you buy the right records, but like it's an expense because you end up buying the ones you want.
It's going to cost you a few $1,000 to make a 7-inch, and that's 2 songs. You could release it online for free.
Exactly. And I was talking about like the expense of like just buying and owning.
Right.
Vinyls are expensive compared to cassettes, CDs, and just buying digital. But you get a whole package, right? You get more than just the music. You get all the
you get the art and
whatever else the artist wants to throw in there. But yeah, like to see how it was done in maybe before times, but how we've adapted that because we liked something that we did back then. We liked something about vinyl keeps bringing people back.
Totally, and it does have that nostalgia factor, but it's also still a very viable format.
It is. Like I enjoy albums. I have albums digitally and on vinyl, and I'll listen to whichever format sort of fits my mood at the time. If I'm like working and I want to hear something, I'll definitely digital because I'm at the computer. Mm-hmm. But if I want to sit and listen, and it's an album that I have on vinyl, it's so much nicer to sit and just watch it spin and listen. Just pay attention to the music.
Totally.
I get that much more often with vinyl than with digital, and that's kind of why I maintain a small collection. So,
on that note, you want to move into CDs here?
Oh, yeah. So back in our day, there was this place called Best Buy, and they had these things called CDs. I mean, they're still around.
I'll let you talk about this one if you want to.
Oh, Deftones' White Pony?
Yeah.
Yeah, not my favorite Deftones album, but...
No. It is mine, though.
It's okay, because it's a great album. There's no question. There's a parental advisory sticker on it. They still do these, don't they? Or not as... I don't think they
I'm not sure if they do, actually.
That's how removed we are, I guess, from buying CDs at the store. They can't, because you go to like any record store and you don't see it anymore.
I mean, we also buy from local stores. I don't know.
Maybe that's the difference.
Yeah, mainstream, like Target and stuff still does that.
In any case, there's an entire discussion to be had on parental advisory, right? Like for the parent who doesn't have the time to research everything and just wants to know yes or no, or basically relegate the decision to someone else or some other entity.
Yeah, trust
whoever's putting this
advisory board is doing that.
Like my kids, and then they don't buy anything that has that sticker on it. I'm like, that's great for sales. That's great for everyone, right? Yeah. But we could go all day about parental advisory, but it is cool that this still wrapped example of Deftones' White Pony has got the sticker and everything on it that indicates that if you listen to this, you'll go to hell. Yeah.
Straight back.
Yeah. Deftones, yeah, just wait till I have CDs that have visions of gore and terror and all the deepest, darkest death metal you could think with none of these stickers. So
that's just a silver cover with a pony.
Yeah. I remember back my first album with parental advisory sticker was Smash Mouth. I can't remember what album, but it had a sticker.
Lounge?
It had a sticker.
No.
It did.
Really?
It did. It had to. I have a memory of it. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong.
Get in the comments.
I give you 99% that's right. I think it did. And I
think Walking on the Sun.
Yep. There's some.
I'm like tracking through the whole thing now.
They say fucking. They're somewhere. I know it.
That is one of my favorite albums, by the way.
Low key, I have to appreciate that album, even though I can't listen to it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then another. One of my later albums, and this is more embarrassing, was what's the name of that band? The Offspring. So, whatever song, whatever album Pretty Fly for a White Guy was on. I can't remember the name of the album.
I remember the cover art. It was like blue with a skull on fire or something.
And if you opened up the CD booklet, there was visions of horror inside, like cartoon monstrosities of devastation. You should definitely Google the album artwork book that came included
for the
Offspring. CD. Yeah, for the Offspring, the CD insert, because wow. Yeah, parental advisory for sure on that one.
I'm still
but
thrown by
they don't
Smash Mouth ending
F-bomb
that.
only a few times, and I think it was the last song. And the Smash Mouth one, we'll verify that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to look that up because that was one of my first CDs.
Mm-hmm.
That and Savage Garden.
Savage Garden? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my first CDs were Eiffel 65.
Nice.
Blue, yeah. The Blue song. It's so embarrassing. It's crazy, right? And then...
Still a good song.
I think the first actual, like CD that I had that I would say now I still liked, probably a Metallica CD. That's pretty early.
Yeah.
That was like the easiest metal
Which
band
one?
to get into. I think it was Injustice for All.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I went to Best Buy and it was like, okay, getting into heavy music, Metallica, like easiest entryway into the heavy world, and I think they were out of Master of Puppets. I just flipped through and I grabbed.
I was going to say that would
grabbed
be the one
whatever one.
I thought you would have gotten first.
Yeah. Now I eventually had that and all their other CDs, but yeah. And then remember back in the day, driving in the car, CD booklets. You take all your CDs out of these plastic cases because once you have a bunch of these, it gets a little messy,
heinous.
And then you have your. I still have mine from high school, CD book.
I almost brought a couple because I still have a couple of them.
Not a bad way to do it. Until
much more compact.
Until this thing came out, of course. And
Until the iPod.
That's awesome. And then, like, for me, CDs are CDs. Like, the value for me is you get artwork, you get a physical representation of it, but all that this CD contains, all it is the WAV files. So there's nothing else to this other than digital WAV files. Meaning, if I download these waves from Bandcamp, they are precisely the same as the waves on here.
Exactly. And I mean, the way they get around that is by re-releasing these things, which this one is, and add DVDs or CDs with more content.
So if you buy a CD, you are not necessarily getting anything different with the music unless they specifically master it differently, which I don't think anyone would do.
Sometimes they remaster.
Okay, and then might CD only the remaster or something. Yeah. But what you do get is anything else the artist wants to make this package complete with, right? And that's just a huge proponent. That's just one reason why physical media will always have some level of popularity until the cyberpunk apocalypse.
Yeah, until
everything
one
until
consciousness.
We're digital. Yeah.
Yeah.
The singularity.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are the singularity. Please insert CD. Yeah.
And then we would already know about it. So
shit.
But yeah, and CDs still have a lot of value. There's kind of a lot of different ways you can package it and do it.
You got your paper. You got your. Yep.
Yeah. This is like a demo. So after the age of cassettes, which we'll get to, people just burn CDs and put their music on there. You're cutting it on your computer anyway. Mm-hmm. Burn a quick demo and then send it to your label or people you trust, and
I remember
kind of circulate it around.
Yeah. I remember when CDRs became a thing. I remember getting my first... I think my parents had bought a new home computer and it had a CD writing drive. And the moment I realized it had that, I was like, wait.
Burning till nighttime.
Yep. And then as soon as I had that, I went to school with 30 of these. I started, giving it, and then you end up with
it was so prevalent, like System of a Down released their record on a CD that said burn this album. And it was on I
remember that.
Kind of CDR format.
Yeah, it looked just like a CDR.
Yeah, super cool, fun thing for them to do.
Steal this album, right? Or burn
Steal this album. Yeah. Steal this album, that's right,
Yeah. And there's another dimension of that, obviously, is just mixed CDs for everyone, or if you can go farther with it and give a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of these, Someone
made that for you.
Yeah, like a kind of custom, it's the mixtape classic, but with art, and you just buy a jewel case and you can make something like this for someone.
They even did the little paper edge piece.
Yep, the little insert there, back. But in my mind, this is a totally produced thing.
Yeah.
It's just a mixtape.
Exactly.
For someone.
It's amazing that this era did exist not too long ago, where it wasn't a matter of, let me share you this link online to this music. It was like, I had to like go home, put a CDR I bought into the computer, download the music or get it somehow, get it onto the disc, burn it, take it out, put it in the packaging, put it in my bag, remember to give it to the person. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
And those CDRs
so it meant something. It meant
sometimes
something,
had like printers too, where you could print that label.
Oh,
on.
I had the, right. So on the disc itself, instead of hand drawing, it would actually
print on. Yeah.
Exactly.
I bought a Stained CD that had a DVD that had an eye on it.
That's amazing. Stained, I think probably the single greatest band in the world. Yeah.
Jenny Lewis quotes them, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'll let you find that. But yeah, I mean, another way to just distribution, easy to make CDs.
Yeah.
A lot of labels did samplers or do samplers when they want to kind of get people into their bands, and it's a kind of hit list of what they've got going on. But yeah, I mean, CDs are very versatile, cheap format to make, and they're not bad sounding.
No,
like
they're digital.
Some other things.
I mean, it's digital. Like if you play a vinyl on a turntable and you put your ear up to the cartridge and you have your speakers off, you can hear the music.
Yeah. Those waves are flowing.
The music comes when that needle touches that record. Like, it comes out of the record. And the amplifier only just makes it louder. A CD is digital from the start. There are ones and zeros on this CD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to put your eye up to that.
No.
A laser is reading those grooves.
You won't hear a damn thing, and it won't make any sense until a digital to analog converter is used, which every computer has. And that takes digital, ones and zeros, and makes it sound.
Yeah, a term that's not thrown around a lot now, DACs.
DACs.
That used to be a big deal.
People are kind of getting the vibe of what a DAC is and why buying a standalone DAC might make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do have them.
Yeah.
Even if they don't know it, sometimes they're built in.
Exactly. Like a lot of streamers and like video game streamers or other YouTubers who aren't audio wizards or into talking about music specifically, they have DAC solutions. They aren't branded as DACs.
Right.
They're branded more as like podcaster or sort of audio gear, but they all
stream
that's
decks.
what it is. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Which is really cool. So, what else we got? We're going back in time.
Yeah. Let's keep going back. I mean,
we're definitely before not before our time.
Yeah. There was a brief era where USBs were in play.
Right.
So USB-A.
That album was released.
Right.
That's an album.
This is a released album. Comes with artwork and some extra bona fides on there, but by Magic Markers. And yeah, I mean, there was an age where people were releasing albums on USBs, mailing them to you, and then you kind of plug it in and play around.
And they put other things on there too. It's a thumb drive and it's other stuff on it.
Yeah. I'm not sure how prevalent this is now. I mean, this is like
I've never seen
10 years old now. So there is some age to this. And, USB-C is now the king.
Yeah. I wonder what the cost difference production-wise of mass marketing, you don't need much file size. I mean, what's a 1 gig thumbstick nowadays? 99 cents?
Although production on that is much more than a CD.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
So CD is still the most equitable thing.
I guess we're talking $1 versus pennies or something.
Yeah,
who knows?
Or upwards.
Yeah.
It depends on how many you make.
But also, it's not a common format, and it's not. I think as a one-off, it stands off. But if that was the common format, we would have piles of these things.
Right, just a bunch of USBs sitting around.
It's not the right way to do it, but it's a cool way to do it. Yeah.
It's a unique way.
Can you delete the files off of there?
Yeah, it's a free
so
format
you can
drive.
buy the album, plug it in, and your computer crashes and it's gone. Or you just delete it as a statement. I don't know. I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, not a lot.
You can't delete. I mean, you can delete a CD-RW, but these CDs are not deletable. Unless you break it in half.
Cut it up.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, there's an art form around that now too.
Yeah.
Have you seen that where people cut grooves into CDs and play that as music?
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they'll cut that together.
So it's the laser's not reading the cuts, but it's being interrupted by the cuts and causing. Yeah. Interesting.
So it's reading them in a way.
It is.
It's just,
but not in the way that it reads the normal.
Not intended. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's art. That sounds like art.
That's smart.
that's smart art. You know what else rhymes with smart? Continuing on, we have. I
kind of want to throw a sticker up. That's art.
That's art. We got stuff that's older.
Yeah.
Are we gonna do it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm just gonna.
Here we go.
Get straight to cassettes.
I love cassettes.
So the age of cassettes is not over.
Why?
Popular in the 80s, not popular in the 90s, and now they're coming back.
A little bit. The value proposition is
because they're cheap. Yeah, they're cheap to make, easy to make. There used to be a thing called singles.
I love that. This is the first I'm hearing of this.
Where you just put out a cassette and it's got side A, side B.
Yeah.
It's a 7-inch essentially. But some people are doing it. This is a Jenny Lewis one, and then simple paper sleeve, and you can
hand this out at shows. Yeah.
Yeah. Cheap to make, good to use. You got your classic kind of clamshell cassette here with artwork, just a regular cassette.
I remember cars having cassette players.
Yeah, my car did.
Yep.
And it's a good way to listen to music. It's just, sound quality is not there. It's more portable than a record is, but not as portable as a CD.
Right, and then the tape, you can break them.
Yeah. You have to stick a pencil in there and wind it up sometimes, but it's a way to go. And then kind of a larger format of that. This was kind of in the resurgence where Kill Rock Star's record label released a bunch of kind of samplers on their label of cassette.
That's cool.
Stuff. Yeah, and some gold cassettes here. They're kind of cool looking. And then did a little infographic insert of a bunch of their bands and how they interact. So
this highlights like the level of intensity that an artist can get with any format.
Yeah, and something like this is very collectible and cool and interesting. Whether cassettes continue to live on in a singular format, I don't know.
I think the value proposition will always keep cassettes around unless something is easier and cheaper, or people just can't play the damn things anymore because no one has a cassette player.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of them come with digital downloads now. Right. So you can kind of get the best of both worlds where you have something physical to hang on to and then also can download it.
Now, in some subgenres of heavy metal specifically, especially underground black metal, is where you find a lot of cassette trading and a lot of cassette production, some DIY, where an artist might hand assemble and record to like 150 cassettes, make all the inserts and sell them on Bandcamp all the way up to, you can have these things produced for you. But this is where it gets crazy, is like most people don't like the way tape sounds, right?
Right.
Some people do. Some people do. Some people like the way cassettes sound.
Yeah.
And I'm not one of those people, but I can see why they like it, because the style of music calls for that raw sort of harsh and compressed sound, right?
Well, it comes back to those feelings where it's like warm and roomy, but instead of that, it's kind of like harsh and
cold.
Yeah.
Can you imagine anything better for raw black metal like that you find on like the lowest levels of the internet? Like that's all music about cold, harsh, horrible landscapes and wildernesses and all sorts of, lovely topics like that, and nothing exemplifies that better than that rock hard, just nasty recording quality.
Well, and that is a case of the format working for the genre.
Absolutely.
Where, you do want to record on something that
makes sense.
Makes the music translate the way you want it to. So for that use case, I think that's a good
makes sense.
use.
I think cassettes will always be around in some way, but how major of a player they are is going to change.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
that'll be the first to go.
They've had a lot of play lately just because of how cheap they are.
Yep.
But again, I mean, we've read about the vinyl kind of production
pipeline problems.
Yeah, and the same thing is true in cassettes, probably to a more drastic degree.
Really?
You just don't hear about it as much because a lot of people aren't making cassettes.
Yeah.
But it's coming back in such a way where, NAC is one of the biggest cassette makers in the country, and their backlog is like a year long. So
I can see why a lot of these folks, at least in my circles in music, kind of deeper down, are just DIYing it.
Yeah, and dubbing cassettes is a very cheap, easy way to do it. If you have a master and you want to put it on a bunch of cassettes, there are options.
If you're on a budget and like it's important to monitor how much you're spending, but you still want to get your music in the hands of other people, there's probably no other way.
Yeah,
right? No cheaper way.
Dubbing cassettes is probably the cheapest way, other than burning CDs.
I was going to say burning CDs is still cheapest. You got to buy the jewel cases.
You don't have to. You can put them in paper sleeves.
Yeah, you put them in paper sleeves. You're right. Okay.
Yeah, but again, it's kind of like what works best for your music.
Yeah.
And then kind of I had an oddball thing here.
That's cool.
Guitarist Ben Chasney did a couple records called Hexatic and Hexatic 2. And it was kind of based on a card game that he made. But there are rules around like which cards do what and how the music is composed. Both those records were played and composed based on this game he made. And he sold it with records, so that basically when you bought a record, you could play it at home, And if you're getting bored with your playing, then it's a great way to like mix it up and have some new songs just gamified for you.
It's cool. There's something beyond the music that's still part of the music.
Yeah.
It's thinking like that is a matter of thinking about format, but also about your own art. Yeah.
Yeah, and he is a great guitarist. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think he got bored with being so good at guitar and then tried to gamify it in a way that made sense to him.
I think that's totally legit. Yeah.
Yeah. So he did that and made a couple records based on that game.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the key takeaways from format discussion is like one perspective on format, not the only perspective on format, but one perspective on format is that it represents the commercialization of the music, right? Mm-hmm. You can't talk about format without talking about cost. Like that.
Well, it's the output.
Exactly.
It's what consumers will.
Yeah, it's like there's got to be a vehicle to get the music to you. You can't see everything live.
Right.
But like that vehicle matters in certain ways, yes, in other ways, no, and it depends on the genre. But like we're overall talking about, it's going to cost you money.
Yeah. It all costs money.
Yeah, it all costs money. And like all art should be free in some ways. Like you could say that. It's not a realistic proposition when people who spend a lot of time and effort creating these actual physical things you can buy, like don't generate enough money or sustainability to live from that time intensive venture.
Yeah. And the way our society is set up,
right.
You can't sustain a lifestyle doing that.
No. And that's why I'm glad cassettes are still around, because it allows people to easily support artists financially, right? If you don't have all the money it takes to buy a bunch of vinyls, like that's cool. Like go down, like look at cassettes, and like that's an option that I hope does not go away. Meaning, I hope the cheapest option, whatever it might be, doesn't go away because
CDs, cassettes. Yeah. I mean, there should always be some options out there for people, and I mean, frankly, they're more sustainable. Like,
exactly.
Vinyl production is a huge
Yep.
toll on materials.
It is.
There's a lot of oil that goes into making vinyl. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of production costs, and the machinery is expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, burn a CD, release a cassette. These are more viable options.
A little bit more environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
It is good, though, that people don't have a habit of throwing these things away.
Right.
Generally, they stick around. I think that the vinyl resurgence is much more of we have other formats, so we're going to preserve this one intentionally, whereas back in the day, that was the only format, vinyl, or not the only, but the main format.
The main one, yeah.
You would have albums you just don't care about. Maybe people just
and I think,
give them away at garage sales.
Once the fad era moves on,
exactly.
I feel like we are in a fad state. I think it'll get a lot more normalized.
Right.
And prices will go down, hopefully. I mean, I was buying records because they were cheaper than CDs. Mm-hmm. they were like $3 or $4 and CDs were 20, and now records are 20 and CDs are worthless.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of market determinations that we just have no control.
Yeah, the situation changed. Like, we could record this same episode next year and have a completely different situation.
Totally, yeah.
Regarding formats and their cost and the commercialization of it. Yeah. I think that's why some people are turned off by the format thing. Like, some people just don't care. They're like,
right.
Whatever the music's on, I just want to hear the music. And that's like, I don't agree necessarily with that perspective being complete, but I'm fine with it because, like...
Yeah, I understand it.
You're right. The music is the point. Yeah. And
but it is worth researching.
Worth kind of knowing your shit, yeah.
Well, worth researching what you're streaming on, too, because they all have different payouts for artists. I mean, we talk about this a lot where, like, you know, Spotify basically pays people nothing. Mm-hmm. There are some other streamers like Tidal that pay a little more. It's just worth knowing, you know, what you're investing in.
Point being that digital has sort of found a new rock bottom where artists can make the least possible.
Right.
Yep.
And it's up to consumers to change that.
So you have to measure your own sense of what's right and wrong and say, like, I understand the format and how it does this. You got to understand, like, digital did create that rock bottom floor where you could sell the most music, pocket the most money, and send the least to the original creator.
Yeah.
Digital allows that.
And I'm not saying to not listen to Spotify either. It's just if you listen to Spotify, buy a record directly from the artist or something, you know, supplement.
Like, I have Google Music. They're all, I mean, there might be some worse than others. They're all not the greatest for supporting the artist. So generally what I do is if I keep my Google Music library, I'll put everything that I find that I like in there. And then all the stuff that I like or quite like, I'll purchase and support by buying the WAV files on Bandcamp or something. So I'll have it in my Google library, but also have the lossless format that I bought directly from the artist or from the label. So,
it's important to just kind of supplement where you can.
Yeah.
You know, if you like the artist you're listening to or into that music, you know, just find a way to do it.
We always recommend that. Like, even if you don't even have any albums, even if you don't have a record player, you can buy a 12 by 12 picture frame that seals the album, put it in there, and then it's a piece of decor. Like, you might think that's insane. Like, why would you not listen to it? Well, it's a piece of music that you like, and one day maybe you will bust it open and listen to it.
I think a lot of people do that, actually, because...
Oh, they do that. They do that more mindlessly than I'm describing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it as an intentional piece.
Intentional, like, I want this because I like this album and I want a memorabilia of it. Even if, like, I don't listen to albums, right? It
is funny, though, because I do think, I feel like I read this somewhere, but a lot of people buy records and they're never going to listen to them, which is fine, because you probably are listening digitally.
I have unlistened in my collection.
Yeah, same. But they probably buy them to, like, have as art pieces or you know, have around the house.
Just to have, like, just to have is so important. Just to have, and especially analog, meaning, like, in theory, you could reconstruct some kind of rough mechanism maybe to play it. Like,
I'm sure
if computers are gone,
if you have
a CD is useless.
A sharp needle,
yeah,
and a amplification system.
It is cool that the music is, like, on the
imprinted
in there, physically, as opposed to just being encoded in zeros and ones and then imprinted. So, like, I think for me personally, that's my attraction to vinyl, is that I feel like I own the music sort of more tangibly in that way.
Yeah,
like, and it's more infinitely reconstructible.
It's a record in more ways than one.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. I like the way that sounds. That's actually very quippy and very good.
Thank you. I just thought of that.
Perfect. Trademark, copyright, everything.
TM, CC.
Yep. And I hope, do you think Apple's going to sue us for, like, me talking about that? No, they're not. Nah. They'll probably be glad that I'm bringing this relic out.
Yeah, they really need some money right now. I think Tim Cook's doing some bad work for them.
Yeah. I come back to this thing all the time because as important as that Walkman was down there for for so many people, it ditto this, just at a different time.
Yeah, it was huge.
I can't believe they invented this thing. And now it didn't last a great long deal.
No, but
this became a phone pretty quick.
It was the number one selling item for Apple for a decade.
Oh, guys, you got to listen. Even the click.
How satisfying.
I mean, like, and obviously Apple known for very well built and engineered products.
Yeah.
Like the software might be a little limiting if you wanted to criticize it, but and this was back in the day before streaming, so like DRM was a thing, and like.
I mean, the iPod.
Yeah.
A win.
It win.
Solidly.
Overall, we could criticize it. There's no point because it's a legendary piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And I've had so many experiences with this actual iPod, listening to it and just like feeling like I have all my music with me, and I could hear anything I need at any moment, and be taken out of the world and put into my music in this little device that stays charged all day, runs fine, never had any issues with it, and it still works. I don't have it charged, but I bet you if I plug it in, it still works.
You never bought a Zune.
I didn't buy a Zune, but you did. Did you?
I had a friend who did.
Okay, close enough.
It's in Guardians now.
Yeah.
Too, so I don't care. I don't care if you buy Zunes. Just don't keep buying that cassette player.
Are Zunes valuable on eBay? They can't be. There's no way. I think even if they were valuable, I think people would intentionally devalue them.
When my buddy who bought a Zune bought one, they were like touting it left and right, and no one caught on.
It's funny because Microsoft with their Zune tried as hard as they could to out Apple, and you can't. You got to play a different game.
It was just weird. It was just a weird device.
It was like a replica, just less functional, less usable, and less likable, less easy. Maybe I bet with a Zune you can just drop the files onto this stupid thing.
Microsoft.
Yeah.
Less easy.
I don't know. Actually,
I like that slogan.
I don't know. Sometimes it's more easy. Well, with the Zune, you can probably just drag and drop files onto it, right? And not have to use iTunes. You can use it as a drive.
It had its own encoder.
Did it have its own software?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh. Anyway, even though that's not, those are iPods and Zunes are of the same format, but there's differences there, right? They're different.
Oh, they were very different devices.
Yeah, very different devices. There's so much thought and engineering goes into it, or not, and then whether the product succeeds is a matter of commercialism or how well it does in the market, and I guess that'll generally be determined by, do people enjoy it? Is it easy for people?
Yeah.
Is it easy?
Less touches.
Mm-hmm. Less having to screw around with crap, more listening to music. That was the big thing with this.
And phones at that time and before didn't do anything.
No, you couldn't. You could play a tune, a ringtone.
Yeah, you could buy a ringtone.
Yeah, you could. You
play
could,
it as a tune.
As music, and it would sound like it was coming out of a tiny little button speaker.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I remember my Nokia with espionage. That was my only music.
Yeah,
it's for a ringtone and for music.
It actually, if you think about it, it is quite recent. This new era of being, but it's so good. Having everything streaming instantly to anywhere you want on any device you want, anywhere on your body or person, powered by battery. Having that is so amazing that it feels like we've had it forever.
I dreamed about that. When I first was oh, this could be a thing. I remember going to Brookstone. Brookstone.
Yeah.
And they had a Bluetooth speaker, and it was the size of a chair.
Yeah.
But it could stream based on wire. It could stream on wireless, which I didn't know Bluetooth and wireless were the same at the same time at that time. But I was like, why is this not everywhere? And then a year later, everyone and their brother had a Bluetooth speaker. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say the Bluetooth speaker is up there with. It's not as game changing as this, but
Bluetooth communication, wireless communication is the game changer. That's what made all this possible.
If only it worked all the time.
I've got more hits than I got misses,
Yeah, generally, yeah. And then the other issue of Bluetooth is the compression. It's gotten better.
Right.
New codecs have allowed for quite high.
New codecs have made it so streaming sounds indiscernible from a lot of physical media.
Yeah. I'd say you get pretty high MP3 quality through Bluetooth.
Yeah. And things like Google Play have a setting for high and low quality too, so you can manage it.
Yeah. Sound Sagas pro tip, go into your streaming services and see if there's options for sound quality. The only reason they give you those options is to save data.
Right.
But honestly, you're not taking a ton of data streaming music.
Unless and if you're on home Wi-Fi, it is much better to just go with the higher quality.
Yeah, always higher quality. You will, even through like mediocre headphones, you should be able to notice a small difference, but it's free. Free difference.
Sound Sagas pro tip.
Pro tip. We're going to have a whole episode of pro tips. Come on, right at you. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I would love that.
The pro tip episode where we just go back and forth and go like, here's a tip.
Yeah, that might be a group episode.
Yeah.
Pros on pros.
Here's a tip. Go back in time and buy one of these things and enjoy it at the time because, like you said, this made me realize that soon, I don't think I realized it at the time, but maybe I should have, that the existence of this meant that today was coming. That this would no longer be necessary, but that like it was possible to have everything you want at your fingertips. Yeah.
And on that, too, not a pro tip, but another tip.
Yeah.
Go to Goodwills or vintage stores, buy old iPods, see what's on those things.
Oh, interesting.
It's fun to buy used ones and
and see
dig through the catalog of someone else.
Because I remember I will say the bad thing about iPods, even at the time, and especially in retrospect, was iTunes interface.
Yeah.
Syncing was weird.
And they do not sync unless you plug them in and the software is running.
Right. Exactly. There was like an order to things, and then like if you synced off the device, it wouldn't remove the song.
Nope. Whatever is in there is in there.
Until it was full, it would start to replace.
Yeah.
And then if you deleted it out of your library, you'd plug your iPod in, it would just delete the songs off your iPod.
Yeah.
Mind-numbingly stupid. Like,
it's good and bad.
But this was before we had the standard. This was them trying to find what people wanted. They just got it a little bit wrong. Like, that's not exactly what people wanted.
And they were running regular hard drives. So from that perspective, it does make some sense. If it were an SSD and it were a quick update.
Correct. There's a technical aspect to it. There was also the DR.
Do they run SSDs now on iPods?
They don't like iPods.
Are they done?
Yeah, they've stopped iPods a while ago.
I thought that
they
was
might
still
make
going.
a little one still. No, they don't make iPods.
That one's got to be an SSD. Little one.
Yeah, no one's putting spinning disk drives anywhere anymore. Unless you specifically need tons and tons of storage.
That would just be funny if there's some factory that's making iPod SSD, like iPod
SSD
hard drives.
iPods. Did they ever? Yeah.
Just
like
hard
making
drives. With the moving parts.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah.
I wonder. I can't remember if they ever switched from spinning disk drives to SSDs.
The clips.
Were
SSDs.
It had to be, yeah.
But those were almost like express cards.
Right.
They weren't
basically
true SSDs.
Basically a tiny little SD card with like a player built around it.
I mean, I never opened one up, but it probably was just a SD card port. And they probably bought some cheap SDs.
To me, the mini, not the mini, but the clip one is less of a innovation and more of a marketing decision.
Oh, yeah.
More of a business decision.
Big time.
They can make a lot of money on the iPod brand by making something that's very cheap to manufacture but looks very expensive.
Once they released those, I was like, oh, this is done.
Yeah. They're like trying to...
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. The same thing happened... I don't know why I mentioned this, but like Mini Coopers. There used to be one Mini Cooper, and then they had 17 different... All the same car with different bodies, like 4 doors, 2 doors, 5 doors, 9
doors. You see them on the street and you're like, wait a second.
Yeah, which one is that? It's a Mini, but I don't know which one it is because no one... it started to get like that.
It's hilarious you said that because this literally just happened to me. Like I was walking down Western and saw a Mini. And I was like, that's not a regular Mini. It's not an S. It's not the like SUV one they made.
Yeah.
It's like, it was right between. And I could not tell.
The Clubman?
Probably.
The Long Boy?
It was something I did not know about.
Yeah. They have models where it's like, there's one that looks like a baseball cap. It's a 2-seater convertible. So it's the most ineffective use of space. Like the Mini Cooper, not bad for storage. Got a big trunk.
Just make a bug.
Exactly. They took the trunk out, folded the roof into the trunk, took out 2 of the seats, and upcharged it. No one bought it.
Hey, Mini Cooper, just ask VW if you can make a bug.
Oh, man.
Or remake a thing.
Yeah.
They're not doing it. I'd love to see some things on the road.
Yeah, it's funny how you could tell with the iPod that it started getting to the end times when they had 19 different versions of this thing.
Yeah.
What do you say about phones nowadays, right?
Yeah. I mean, phones.
Are we reaching the end of the phones? Are we moving to glasses? No.
No. Not yet.
No. I hope not. Yeah.
One day.
Yeah, one day we'll have iPod glasses. No. Yeah. I never... glasses...
Ray-Ban branded iPods in the
interest of weight savings on something you put on your face, you're never going to get decent audio out of those things.
No, they do have glasses.
I guess maybe already. If you put IEMs on them somehow, but
Ray-Ban has glasses that do that.
Oh, they have audio, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it good audio? It can't be. It's like outside of your ear. It comes out of the.
I do want to buy a pair and try them, so maybe I'll do that for fun.
Yeah,
they have cameras too.
Yeah, that's the cool part. That's creepy. They're very incognito too, because you can't really tell that they're.
Oh yeah, in daylight
they look just like Ray-Bans,
regular Explorers. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I love format. I love the way that I have all these. Oh, you have all these things that you show. And I have other stuff that I didn't pull out for this episode, but I love. For me, it's like the experience of using it, but also the aesthetics of it. Right.
Yeah, I mean,
all comes into it.
Like I said, it's great to have a physical representation of your media along with the digital and the audio.
No doubt. And I think whatever format you go with, like, you're going to find online, like, just people, right? Saying one thing's better than another thing. What I'm saying is no thing's really better than any other thing, except that cassettes.
Yeah, they're all quite different. Except cassettes. Cassettes are worse. Yeah.
And flexi discs do sound like crap. No. I'm honestly kidding about the cassettes. Like, they're not the worst. They're good because they give access to people who otherwise wouldn't have it.
They're not great, but
no, we know they don't sound as good unless it's raw black metal. But about 10 people out of 1 million are listening to that.
Just burn a CD.
Yeah. With what? A CD burner? Where do you get one of those?
I'm sure you can find one in the library.
You might have to find an old laptop. Yeah.
Libraries have old computers. They probably have them in there.
No, hot tip. You can buy an external CD burner for like $10 on Amazon.
Sound Sagas pro tip.
Yep, pro tip.
Buy a separate CD player. You have to for some products now.
You do? Yeah. Oh, there's also that problem. I have an old stereo from the 80s or 90s that won't play certain CDs.
That's weird. Codecs just don't work?
Don't know. I think some CDs that might be written dual layer, so you can fit more on them, like dual layer DVDs.
Oh, yeah, that's new tech.
It won't read CDRs.
Or DVDs.
Yeah, it won't play DVDs, but it definitely won't read CDRs, which is weird.
Certain CDRs back in the day had weird codecs.
That's the thing.
So if you reburned it on a different CDR, it probably
I think
would work.
Nowadays, probably solid. But back in the early times of...
I mean, that was like the first couple of years.
Yeah.
Like after that, it was
I remember I had problems with things playing. Mm-hmm. And you would, when you made CDs, you could just put the MP3s on a CD, right? That won't play unless your stereo supports MP3.
I had StarCraft on a CDR.
Yeah.
And I could play the video game on certain computers.
Mm-hmm.
And other ones it just would not execute. That may have been an EXE issue.
I do remember this issue because vinyl, you never have an issue unless the thing's damaged.
Right. It's literally a needle hitting.
As long as you got your speed right. Yep.
Yeah.
But with CDs, that
codec issues.
Yeah, and the scratching on the disc too can be an issue. That's general use. But yeah, I remember having those moments with CDs like, why doesn't this work? Which
that happened a lot.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen anymore.
No. I think we're past that time. But digital, I think, went through that era as well.
Yeah.
Like, why doesn't this work? But I think everything just sort of works now, right? So I mean, like that's format stuff for us. Like, we went through maybe 1% of all the stuff you could find.
Yeah, there's so much out there.
Yeah.
And it's going to keep changing.
I think so.
Which is exciting.
You just have to be prepped for it, right? So like future-proof your setups, understand enough about formats to know like, can I have this for a while and be okay? And then be familiar with the different sounds. That's it. That's all once you know that, you're already ahead of the game.
Yeah. And just try to appreciate, some stuff that might be on things you're not familiar with.
Right.
Or might not quite understand. I mean, we don't know everything about it. I'm sure most people don't. So
solid.
Just have fun.
We will be back with you at the next episode. Thank you again for watching. We're going to do more of these kind of deep dives into different kind of interesting topics, but we will see you guys around.
Yeah. Like and subscribe.
Yeah, do that. Like and subscribe, please.
Smash it.
Our lives depend on it. We're going to have to sell all of our records if they don't do that.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. All right, we'll catch you guys later.
hey man, what you do? I find myself a fine titty whopper. I say, hey man, what you do? I find myself a snatch. I say, hey man, what you do? I find myself a big fatty titty whopper. I say, hey man, what you do? I find myself a snack.